Today we're taking a little field trip to my buddy Damon's because Damon has an incredible collection of mostly homologated superbikes. Damon has never let anyone film his collection before, and I've been waiting years to do it. He's a very humble and low-key guy that didn't want to show it off, but big changes are coming to the collection. I've managed to weasel my way in there and get us a tour. Damon comes from a motorcycle family. He started riding a mini bike when he was 5. Then he started riding dirt bikes. He went to college, bought a street bike, and then he hit the racetrack in the 90s. Since then, he's been building and racing his own motorcycles. He's extremely active in helping other riders. He's a founding member of the Legal Ride law firm where they help injured riders and their families. He has the largest and most active social media motorcycle group in the state where they promote safety. He holds monthly motorcycle clinics to teach good riding habits and weekly rides with tech inspections. I've seen Damon work with businesses to get low-income riders helmets, jackets, etc. riding gear to be safe. Most people don't know about that. Damon, again, humble and low-key. So let's go. Let's see this collection that's never been seen before.
So I started collecting 90s era homologated bikes, which a lot of people think is the sort of the golden era of superbike racing. And there's a couple of bikes that are outside of that in here, and I got those for other reasons, but we'll talk about those. So I started riding street bikes in the 90s, so a lot of these bikes I saw on the street back in the day.
Well, give me the tour. I mean, I know I've been lucky enough to get the tour in the past, but you can talk about these things all day. I absolutely love them.
Okay, so we'll start with this RC30. This is 1990 RC30. They made 300 of them, and it's arguably one of the most, it's not the rarest, but one of the most collectible and most expensive homologated bikes. So the most expensive one I've seen was $132,500 at an auction,
wow,
at Bonham's auction here in Las Vegas a few years ago. This won a lot of races, a championship winning bike, in a lot of hearts and minds. So single-sided swing arm, a high horsepower inline 750 motor. Honda sold a race kit with it that bumped up the power quite a bit. And yeah, there's not a lot of other things to say about the bike.
It's awesome. Growing up as a kid, they had one of these at the Honda dealer on the shelf.
Oh, really?
And man, I used to check it out all the time. Maybe this is the bike from when I was a kid. I don't know, but I was always in awe of the RC30.
Yeah, so this was the first bike I got. I stumbled on it on Facebook and bought it from a guy named John French out in Orange County. He was one of the prior owners of Pro Italia, which was where I bought my first new Ducati back in 1994. And I saw it on Facebook and we connected, and I flew out the next day and he picked me up and we went and had breakfast, and then I went to his house. He had a bunch of examples of these in his house.
Oh man.
Maybe 40 or 50 bikes in his house, but very knowledgeable guy, and I think to this day he works on Ducati motors that are problems that the dealers can't resolve. But really knowledgeable, good guy. We made a great deal. I paid probably twice as much as it was worth at the time, but of course the value has gone up quite a bit. So
cool bike, man.
Thanks. I like this bike. This one is all stock. There's no modifications, nothing missing off of this bike. Pretty low mileage, about 2,300 miles.
Dang.
Yeah.
And from there, what did you go? What did you buy?
I'm trying to think, but I think the next bike I got was this one.
You know that's my favorite bike out of this collection.
Really popular bike right now. So 91 ZX7RR. So I believe it's a K model, but homologated bike. So it looks very similar to the ZX7 back in the day for this year. But it has some features like handmade aluminum gas tank, and different internal gearing. I mean, these all came with a cassette transmission, so that can be changed very quickly at the track. And those are probably the biggest features of the bike. But this bike was owned, as I understand it, I bought it from a dealer up in Utah. It was owned by a dentist who passed away in a motorcycle accident. His family returned the bike to the original dealer who sold it. And I found this bike online, I think through not an auction site, but a listing service for these type of bikes. And I made a deal with the dealer and had it delivered. So these are extremely popular. They're selling for good money nowadays.
You told me that you actually rode this one.
I rode this one. Oh, that's right. It had flat slide carburetors, which work well at the high RPMs, but on the street range, they don't work very well. So I chugged it up and down the street, and it didn't work very well. It's a hard bike to ride because you have to keep it revved way up to make power, which of course on the racetrack is great, but on the street is a terrible idea.
Right.
And I actually rode this one on the track too.
Oh, cool.
So I put a lot of blue painter's tape on it to protect everything, and a friend went out with me and followed me around, and we did a couple of laps up at Spring Mountain on a track day one day, and then put it away. I just wanted to see what it felt like to ride it.
Sure.
And to be honest, modern sport bikes are way better.
Yeah.
So my current track bike makes 75 more horsepower than this thing and stops better and is lighter. So
right.
It's come a long way.
I'm sure. These are like old tractors in comparison. So
after that, I found this. I bought it from, and they're all a little dusty. The third one I got, I found from a collector out in Ohio. It's an 86 GSXR Limited. So some of the things the big thing that sets this bike apart from the regular ones you could buy this year is it has a dry clutch, which was really unusual. Still unusual, but really unusual back then. You can't buy those parts anymore. They're unobtainable. I actually rode this bike once also, but yeah, this also has an aluminum tank and a few other racing features, but super rare bike.
I think this is the most popular color ever made. Everyone loves this color.
Yeah, this is also my favorite. I like the red, white, and blue American Corsa colors myself. So.
I agree, it looks cool.
So after Mikey, this is Chris.
What's up, Chris? How you doing?
Hey, Mikey. I know we've met somewhere.
A couple times, yeah. Your dog's trying to eat the camera, dude.
Yeah. Hey! Place. Or stay down.
Okay, great.
Stay down. Stay down. Come on. This is an SPA, so Sport Production, which was their homologated race bikes. A is for Americas. And this is, I believe, the rarest variant of the 916 that was made. So Ducati made 53 of these. Some sources say 54, but when I talked to Ducati, it was 53. And this has, from the factory, it has magnesium engine cases. It has a 955 Corsa motor that was built at the factory. And it has special numbers on the case, on the engine cases, which this is also the most faked 916 variant out there because they're so rare. So this one, I verified all the numbers with Ducati and the engine number in particular. So this is bike number 14.
And it's the real deal.
The real deal. So yeah, I have a set of magnesium Ducati racing wheels for this bike also, and then it came with some of these things like the Termi exhaust and upgraded suspension. So I had a 95 916 myself. That was my first new Ducati. But this bike is way more special than that bike. So.
Yeah, I think.
Hey,
how'd you get in there, dude?
he's really good at getting in shit.
Holy shit.
Stop. Sit. Stay.
You must like that helmet.
Stay. Yeah, he has gotten his hands on helmet before. he chewed all the pads out of one of Randy's helmets.
Yeah, the 916 is pretty special now, just a regular bike. So this is pretty incredible.
Yeah. So this was a, let's come back to this. This is not a homologated bike, but this belongs in the collection anyway. 900 Fireblade. This was an revolution. Hey, get off of there.
I want to take a picture.
Stop it.
Look at this dude. Oh
You're
no.
gonna get dashed. So,
$6,000 worth of training.
yeah.
I'm gonna send that to my friend and be like, check out your monopile. Getting torn up right now.
So this was Honda's effort to change the game. They took, at the time, a 600 size chassis and put a big motor in it. So a 900cc motor. And it was, like I said, this was a game changer bike. The command from the top was to make it as light as possible with a big motor. And it had things like these holes that were drilled in it for lightness and for airflow. Game changer. So it's not a homologated bike, but it was extremely popular. Happens also to be the most desirable color scheme. I bought this from a collector out of New Hampshire. And prices on these things have just gone nuts. So anyway, the next really game changer bike in the evolution of super bikes, this was 1990, was the 916, and it was available to the racing teams in 94 and the general public in 95, and then they made this America's variant in 96. And the engine cases, they were reaching the limits at 955. They did a couple of, they basically had to change the motors for the 996, 998 version of the motor, but this was where they started damaging engine cases and stuff with the power. So anyway, let's see, we got these bikes covered, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Now, I know how special this one is and how popular these things are.
Yeah, so this was a 91 Yamaha FZR R, so it doesn't really look like the regular FZRs of the era. OW01, so OW is Yamaha's version of their racing program. So this bike came out of a collection in Hollywood and has 72 miles on it. So this is my lowest mileage bike. Let me check on him.
It's like having a kid, dude.
So I got this at a Bonham's auction a few years back. A lot of bidding. Some people said I paid too much for the bike, but I don't think I did. And it's on its way out to another collector now for, I think this is going to be the highest recorded sale of one of these bikes here in the next week or so.
I think when you bought it, you said all bets were off, that money-wise, you were getting this bike no matter what it took.
Yeah, there was a gentleman in front of me that was bidding on it, and I told him I didn't care. I had all day and all the money and just keep bidding, but I was going to leave with the bike. And he tested me for a while, but I got the bike.
You told me you didn't care if it put you in the poorhouse. You were getting it.
Yeah. And I got a lot of slack from my friends about what I paid for it, but it's on its way out for far more than I paid for it. It's just been 4 or 5 years. So I love this bike. A lot of people's favorite bike of the era.
Yes.
So my favorite is the next bike in this series from Yamaha. So this is the OW02 and also the real original R7. Yamaha's making an R7 now. But this is a 96, and if you look closely, I mean, every piece on this bike is special. I mean, it came with factory CNC milled rear sets that are adjustable. I mean, this is as nice as the stuff you can buy, you know, for modern sport bikes. And machined suspension parts, linkage, just everything on this bike. I love the look. It's the first modern looking homologated bike. It also won the championship, the World Superbike Championship in '96, and the championship was protested. And as I understand, the racer was disqualified because they found some substance in his system, and then the championship was given to somebody else, and then on appeal they reversed the decision, but Yamaha said they were done messing around for a while with World Superbike. So this was the last of the era right here. And this bike took me about 10 or 12 years to find. This particular one came out of England, and really happy with it. It's very clean. I love this. This is probably my personal favorite in the collection.
It is clean.
So this is not a 90s era superbike. This is a 2015 homologated bike. So the R1M, they made 1,500 of these. And this was my personal track bike for a few years. Unfortunately, I never crashed it, but I have all of the original parts, all the original bodywork, but I did quite a bit. Gary Dean built the motor for it. Lenny Albin, rest in peace, but he was a world-class suspension tuner. Him and the owner of Evotech did the suspension on this bike, and we spent quite a few days out at the track getting it right. But this is just a wonderful bike. So a 2015 homologated super bike, but this is a modern bike, and it still makes more power than most bikes you can buy. The electronics are better now, 7-8 years later, but this is still an amazing motorcycle. So in the Honda world, after the RC30 came the RC45.
Yeah. I think this is the first one I'd ever seen, is your RC45.
Yeah, so this came out in '94. They made 50 of them, and from what I've read, 25 came to the United States. There's some debate about how many are left, but maybe 5, somewhere in that area. There's another one in town that's owned by a friend of mine that has less miles. So this bike came out of a collection, a gigantic collection in New York. And a guy I met that helped me get one of these other bikes, he put me in touch with the owner. I had bid on it after it didn't make reserve at an auction a few years earlier here in Vegas. Tried to negotiate post-auction. He took the bike back to New York, and I don't know, 4 or 5 years later, I was able to buy it from him on a phone call while I was standing in Seattle picking up another bike. And anyway, great bike, much more rare than the RC45, and it brings an average one of these brings more money, but they're not as desirable for whatever reason. The RC30s, the high end on those are more than these, but I've seen a few of these go now for $100,000 and $105,000 range, so they're getting up there. Anyway, it didn't win any championships, but it's probably my favorite, one of my Hondas, actually.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Except for the new one. So the next in line was the RC51.
Bike that I love. I love twins.
Super popular. So, and at this time, Ducati was destroying all the competition. And the reason was pretty simple. The homologation rules limited the size of the motors to 750 cc's, the 4 cylinders. Ducati came in with a twin, and because of the advantages of a 4-cylinder, Ducati was able to get an exemption, and they were able to run up to 1,000 cc's in a twin. And they made their power much differently. They had a lot more torque, accelerated out of the corners much better, and they were winning race after race, championship after championship all over the world. So Honda and actually Suzuki came out with their own versions of the Ducati motor. So this was Honda's version, the RC51. It's a twin like the Ducati. It's got the radiators on the side instead of in the front. So yeah, this variant was raced by Nicky Hayden, and he won quite a bit with this bike. So anyway, this is the homologated version.
Yeah, Nicky Hayden, 93 because the silver frame. All the rest of them had the black frame, but the 93 had the silver frame.
Okay, so this is the homologated version, and great bike, very popular.
One of the best sounding bikes on earth.
Yeah, booming. It got that big booming twin. Doesn't rev up very high, but like the 4 cylinders. But Honda did a good job of challenging Ducati with this bike.
This is a bike I need sooner or later. Not one this nice, one I can ride, but
yeah, this ain't a rider. This belongs in a house. So let's see. As far as Ducatis, let's go to this one. So I followed this bike around for a while on the internet, and it became available back in 2019. And it was owned by a gentleman named Lee up in Seattle, and he had it on an eBay auction. I called him up and asked him what his price was, and he told me what he wanted, and I told him I would buy it. So he took the bike down off the auction. So this was a SP3 variant. So this was the sport production model of the 851. The cool thing about the 851 is that it was the first iteration of this V-twin water-cooled motor, and this thing immediately started winning races.
yep.
So the sport production model is, again, their homologated race version. And then as this bike progressed through its development, the motor got built up to an 888 motor. They started testing, developed the 888 motor, and then transitioned to the 888.
The 888.
So this is a 93 888 SPO. They made very few 888s. The records are not all in agreement, but only a few hundred bikes a year. They had a Strada version which had a back seat. 93, from what I can tell, every single bike they made in 93 was a homologated version. So a solo tail, high pipes. And Ducati at this time was having supply chain issues. So they spec'd the bike out and advertised it with certain things, and you could get 2 brand new bikes from the factory with different parts on them, and they looked different. So that's just the Ducati thing. So this bike was winning races, had a 3-year life, and they developed this 888 motor into the 916 motor, which started life as a 916, and that motor grew into a 955. And then they changed the cases and were able to punch that motor out to a 998. So anyway, that's the progression of Ducatis with this version of that motor, and game-changing technology for the time was 851, 888, 916.
If you just had these 3 Ducatis in your collection, that'd be amazing.
Yeah, they're all super rare. I ended up also getting a Superleggera. So last of the V-twin motors, not exactly the last year, but this is a 2014, so it's not really part of the 90s homologation special bikes, but super cool. Panigale 1199 motor. So Superleggera means super light in Italian. So this bike is 368 pounds from the factory. And with the racing exhaust and the up map, and this bike made about 205 horsepower. So it was a rocket ship.
That's crazy light with crazy horsepower.
Yeah, so it got broken in on the street the day I got it. I found out how fast it went on the street, on the freeway. And then it's got, I don't know, this bike has about 900 miles on it, so about 600 of them are on the track. And then I put it away because I really liked it. So they've come out with 2 more. They had another version of this bike, which I didn't like as much. And then they just came out with another one, the V4 version. Beautiful bike, but this will always be my favorite Panigale model. So this bike isn't going anywhere, ever.
It's beautiful.
Yeah, thank you. It's a great bike.
Might have to ride that one someday.
Yeah, get it out there. So we've covered all these over here. We've covered these, and then really it's just these two, and then I'll just talk about the progression, right? So this is 96 ZX7RR. So I believe it's the I believe it's the M variant, but it's the homologated bike. The last of the line for homologated ZX7s. And I liked the style and the colors, and I thought it was special to have both bikes. So this is the first and last year, and then
it is special to have both bikes.
My friends at Iconic gave me that picture of the first and last year bikes together. So while I was down at the Iconic hangar in Santa Monica looking at that bike, I saw this. So these are extremely rare. Less of these came into the country than any other bikes that I'm aware of. And there's, again, a lot of debate about how many are left. And as I understand, they made 50. 20 came to North America, not the United States. And due to the tariffs they had at the time. So they had import tariffs in the United States of motorcycles over 500 cc's. I think it was 500. And everybody wanted 750s. So 20 of these were delivered to Canada. And again, as I understand, Yoshimura got all of them. Brought them into the United States for their superbike team. So I don't know how many are left. I've heard there might be less than 10 in the country. Maybe 5, but that's what I heard. And then I walked into Iconic one day and I saw 5 of them sitting in the shop. They didn't belong to the shop though. They belonged to one of the mechanics there who worked with the Yoshimura team. So Ollie, was kind enough to sell me this bike, and he gave me the correct wheels and the airbox and all that. But I've been hunting for the exhaust pipe since I bought it, but it's impossible to find because there weren't any. You know? So super rare bike. This is probably my favorite Suzuki of all times. Just love the looks of it. So the progression of the bikes was really, I went up to Seattle to pick up this bike from Lee, and he was a really gracious guy. Spent the day with my friend Rory and I, and showed us around some cool places in Seattle. And he wasn't really into motorcycles. He was a professional racer for Toyota, and he bought motorcycles to decorate the spaces in between his race cars and his car collection. Like you car guys are, you fancy Ferrari owners like yourself. So he asked me while I was with him if there were any other bikes I was looking for. And I told him I was really looking for a RC45. So he picked up the phone and called this guy in New York. I'd been trying to talk to him for 4 or 5 years. He picked up the phone and called him on his cell phone. And I made the deal with this guy while I was standing in Seattle with Lee. And he was a super cool guy. He asked me what I was looking for, and I told him I was looking for one of these CBRs, and he put me in touch with the owner of this bike, Jason, who's got a corporate position with Ducati. But he lives in New Hampshire. He sold me this bike, part of a deal. I've had to buy several bikes from him to get this bike, and then I took the other bikes and traded those to Chris Clovis, one of the owners of Eurocycle here in town. He had just bought a 40 bike collection of Ducatis out of California, and he had 2 of these in a collection. And we traded those bikes, and he gave me this bike and some cash for those 7 motorcycles I got from Jason. So it just it was a lot of fun, like meeting these people over the years. So I met the iconic people. They're, in my opinion, they're really the go-to people to find these bikes probably in the world.
You've been talking to them up ever since I've known you, so.
Yeah, they're wonderful people, very knowledgeable. So I bought this Kawasaki from Adam and Iconic, and their mechanic had this bike in the shop. Adam was very familiar with the OW01. It was one of his neighbors. That bike was in his neighbor's house. He was able to give me a lot of the history on the bike. And Adam's got a real gift, but the first time he came here, he looked at the VIN number on this bike and he knew that it came from John French's house. I don't know how he knows stuff like that, but, and then Adam found the OW02 for me. It took years to get hands on that bike, but he brought that bike over here and sold it to me. So yeah.
Well, you also have the mini collection that everyone wants.
Yeah.
Everybody wants this mini collection.
Yeah. Are you being good in here, buddy? Yeah. You can't eat that. That's why you were at the vet, I think. So, NSR 50. This bike's never been started. Came out of the crate and went on display. This was a lot of MotoGP guys and other racers got their start on this little bike. It's a little 50cc two-stroke Honda. Bought it from a local collector. He had a rider and a collector. So I bought this from him and he let me ride his race bike up and down the street. A lot of fun. This YSR 50, so super clean example, came out of New York. Adam actually got this bike for me. And yeah, these are probably the most popular ones. They're really going up. And so this isn't super rare, but this is a really, really clean example of the YSR 50.
It's the cleanest one I've ever seen.
Yeah, you have one as well, which...
I had one. Mine wasn't pretty. This one's pretty.
Yeah, and I've never ridden this through somebody's house like you have.
Mine was the cheapest one in the country. I don't think this one's the cheapest one in the country. But what you have next to it, to me, is the holy grail of these things.
Never officially imported into the United States. I got this from a collector, through Adam, but I got this from a collector in Southern California. Suzuki GAG 50, never been started. Still has the original protective shipping sleeve on the exhaust pipe. And it has 2.1 kilometers from being pushed around at shows. So I got it from the second owner. This bike came out of Japan. It's a really great example of a no-mile GAG 50.
Thank you so much for sharing these bikes with me over the years. I told you that I was going to spend the night in here someday. I've never done it, but you told me I could, so that was cool.
Yeah, bring a sleeping bag.
No one has ever seen all these bikes in this collection together, ever, except for this video that's going out. And pretty special to see them all together.
Yeah, they won't be together long.
Yeah, that's, good and bad.
Yeah, just upgrading, I don't want to say upgrading, I'm modernizing the collection. So have a very special bike that's 3 or 4 minutes away that we'll look at next.
That's going to be a secret right now. We're going to do a video on that one later. I'm very excited about the new bike.
Video. Yeah, me too. Never seen one in person. Didn't think I'd ever see one in person. And now there's going to be one here.
Me neither. Sad but sweet. Thank you, Damon. I appreciate you.
For sure.
That concludes the tour portion of this video. As I said in the beginning, everything changes. 5 minutes after we filmed this never been seen before collection, everything changes. You should see what shows up. It blows me away. I didn't want to make this video too long. Everything, all the changes, comes out in the next video. I'll have it out in a couple days. Thank you, Damon. I hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you.